Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight at Nomen for another amazing industry event. I'm your host, Max Day, and I'm the Director of Education at Nomen. It's great to see everybody here at the Dell stage on the campus in Los Angeles. For yous who are joining us online, or anybody new to Nomen, if you'd like to learn more about what we do and who we are, we're a 3D college that specializes in visual effects, animation, and game art. For careers in the entertainment industry. That is our niche, and that is what we do, and we think we do it very well. So we offer a full-time bachelor's and a certificate program, as well as individual courses and continued training for studio professionals. Our campus is designed to mirror real-world studio environments where students learn the same tools and workflows used in the industry. Whether you're starting your journey or looking to sharpen your skills, Nomen provides hands-on training and mentorship for industry professionals. We also run Windows operating systems. If you'd like to learn more about Nomen, get any feedback on your portfolio, learn about scholarships, or just tour our incredible campus, visit Nomen's website at nomen.edu, or you can reach out to admissions@nomen.edu, and we'll take care of you. We have open houses happening this Saturday at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. if you're local to Los Angeles, and you can still register for that day, so visit our website if you'd like to sign up. We also host free monthly streaming events like this one. We're honored to bring artists, directors, alumni, studio teams to share insights into their creative process and their production workflows. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Dell and NVIDIA. Without their support, we would not be able to bring all this amazing events to you and our community. Tonight, we are excited to welcome artists from JangaFX and Undertone FX as they break down real-time visual effects tools and workflows for you. Be sure to stick around at the end of the presentation if you have any questions and answers, as we will have a time for you guys to ask specifics. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for the night. So can we get a big round of applause? Yeah! All right. Thank you, that was great. How are you guys doing? Thank you so much for coming out. I'm going to do a really brief introduction and then just hand it off to you to kind of explain more about what you do and show off the amazing work that you guys do. So up on stage tonight we have Jason Key. He's the Principal Visual Effects Artist and Evangelist for JangaFX. Woo! And David Johnson. He's the Founder, CEO, and Creative Director at Undertone FX. Thank you guys so much for being here, and take it away.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let's dig into some cool stuff. I'm really excited to show you guys some never before publicly seen behind the scenes look at a video game that I worked on, and I'm really proud of some of the work that is in. Jason's going to show off some really amazing stuff in EmberGen. And we're going to go back and forth a little bit. I'm going to have an opening bit. We're going to just kind of talk about the basics of video game effects and flipbook textures and how they're made. And then over to Jason to show off some real-time volumetric fluid sim stuff. And then back to me, I'm going to give sort of a use case, taking some EmberGen stuff that I did and how I put it in an Unreal Engine and what the final result was. So let's dig right in. First, we have an introduction. So I go by DJ. My name's David Johnson. I founded Undertone FX about 8 years ago now. We're a team of about 18 artists around the world. And before that, I was the head of effects at Infinity Ward for about 10 years on the Call of Duty games, where I worked with Jason on Infinite Warfare. And here's just a brief recap of stuff I've done in picture form. I'm one of 4 people in the world that have won 2 VES awards in the real-time category. Shipped 30-plus games, the ones on the right that are bigger, the ones you might have heard of. Twice published, former board of directors for the VES. And these are a few of our clients. And before we start showing you stuff, I'm going to show you our company demo reel, if I may. Here's a look at some of the work that our company, Undertone FX, has done. Yay. And with that, let's take a look at some. Oh, and just a little personal thing. I'm a massive Dungeons & Dragons fanatic. This is my D&D room at the house. I don't know if anybody else plays, but I really like it a lot. So let's take a look at, so before we get into volumetrics and EmberGen, let's just take a step back and talk for a moment about the primary thing from which game effects are made of, and that's just flipbook textures. We're going to go to live in Unreal Engine right now. This is Ultimate Fire Pack. So this is something you can buy on the Unreal Store right now that our company made. And it is, I wanted to just use it to illustrate that here are, live 3D particle systems. You can spin around them. You can walk right through them. They're fully set up to work in real time in a game engine. They have distance culling stuff. We have to be very fixated about the amount of milliseconds any given effect takes. We often measure them in nanoseconds or billionth of a second timings we will get on these things to make sure they're not going to blow our budget. And this wall kind of nicely illustrates, these are all the textures that go into making those fires. So these are all filmed on 4K, 8K red cameras. So these are kind of just an individual layer. So we've got 4 different fires at 4 different sizes, and then some other layers. So the little embers are this texture, and you can tell Niagara to randomize to pick every particle will get a different one, so they don't feel so uniform. There's these little other embery things. There's a thick smoke that takes kind of hard lighting, and then a wispy one for when it dissipates, and an explosion. And you put all that together, and there is a real-time, I'm flying around it right now, fire that you can just drop in a level. So textures are kind of, the sort of fundamental, unit of an effect. Until now, we're starting now to get into like volumetric stuff. You can put full-on volumes in Unreal Engine now and author them in EmberGen. I want to take a look at, how does one of these get prepped? How do you go from somebody filmed this on a camera to here it is in a video game? And the way you do that is there's a sort of a process I'm going to show off right now. So here's another thing that is on the Unreal Engine store right now. These are dirt blasts. So again, they are filmed, they're prepped into flipbook textures, and then here they are running live in real time, and you can kind of spin around them. So in order to do that, let's take a look at the After Effects project that we use to prep that clip for the video game engine, in this case Unreal. So here is a look at, there's the raw filming. So by the way, thanks and credit to the guys over at Action VFX who we've partnered with. So they have a ton of effect stock footage on their website, and we're helping partner with them to bring it all to game engines now. So you don't have to do the prep work. We're sort of doing it for you. So if that's what you get in, this on the left is what you get out. So there's a flipbook texture where we've taken 64 frames of that whole maybe 12-second clip. And I'm going to just kind of step you through each little bit of how to go from footage to a flipbook. So starting with the footage, we've got this little series of compositions. You can do this in Nuke or any number of and Houdini even, any number of compositing software. I just know After Effects from way back in the day, so that's what I'm using still. And so you begin with the footage. Really, you just drag it into a comp. So here it is, just the exact same thing in a comp. You can scrub time on it, and then we're going to go through a series of steps that crop it. It has to be made power of 2. Pixel resolution, you need, it's helpful if there's a power to number of frames, either 16, 32, 64, and so on. So I'm just going to sort of just open each of these in steps. So we take that, and we basically just have a prep layer, and then it goes into another one where we center it. You can see there's a little gap over on the side now. I've brought a utility in here that just shows me where the center is. So the moment the explosion begins, we've got it. The reason you want it to be centered like that is so that if you have multiple of these clips in flipbooks, when in the game, the grenade or the RPG, whatever, the explosion goes off, you don't want to have them slightly offset from one another. You want to have them like dead on in the center so that where the grenade hits, like that's the source of it. So we lose a little space on the edge of the comp, but that's important because you need them to all line up in the real-time engine. From there, we sort of crop it down to get rid of any dead space. You just kind of eyeball it. And here it goes off the edge of the thing. Well, that's no good for a video game engine. If you see, the smoke just getting chopped off in the air, that sucks. So we're going to need to fade it out. And so there wasn't enough time for this clip for it to like fully dissipate, and it didn't stay in frame. So those are all adjustments that you have to make to this clip. So next, we made an edge mask. So I'm going to go back and turn off that centering thing. It propagates through. We don't need to see that anymore. All right, so here now is an edge mask. So I've got it fading off on the left. And this was made with this. So basically I took a comp of the same size, had a little gradient in there, and then a noise that I told to pan over time to kind of mimic the rate that the smoke was sort of naturally moving with the wind. So as it sort of crunches away, it sort of dissipates. So if you just put the noise over a gradient and make it blending mode overlay, it leaves the blacks, it leaves the whites, but where it is gray, it kind of like combines the noise into it. So then with that, now we tell the footage to use that as an alpha channel, and then it nicely has a fade off on the side now. Great. All right, remove the ground. So we just basically had to hand draw. So there's the mask I drew with the ground in there, and I just sort of drew a little black and white thing. Then that gets used as an alpha channel too. You can see now the ground isn't in there anymore. We're looking at just the alpha of it. I'll switch back to RGB. Excellent, ground's gone. Power of 2. Basis resolution. So in video games, the way video cards work is textures get stored in chunks of memory, and they have to be a power of 2. It has to be either square or rectangle. 512, 256, 1024, 2048, 4096, 8192, and we've just started doing 16K textures in the game. That was not a thing until recently. But memory is cheap. Consoles have a lot of memory these days. I was kind of blown away on the last Call of Duty game. They approved me having 600 megabytes of texture memory for the effects, which is pretty absurdly a lot for a video game. But we used it. All right, so time crop. Sometimes there might be a couple of frames at the beginning of the thing that are just black, so you want to get rid of those. You want every frame to have something in it. There might be, in this case, the thing just ended, but so we have a time crop function here to make sure that every frame is a good one. We need it to fade out. It has to be gone by the time this flipbook is done, so it's just a little couple of keyframes. To just nicely, gently exit it. Export prep, and then we start to branch it. So we output this thing in a 16 frame version, 32, here's 64. It looks really choppy now, but in the game engines there'll be frame blending, so it won't just switch to one, it'll kind of like crossfade between them. Most of the time, flipbook textures in a game are going to use 64 frames, which, if you think about it, a lot of games run at 60 FPS, so that's about a second's worth of time that you can have in one of these guys. The reality is, even though it's a 60 FPS game, you can have them play back at about 15 FPS and still look reasonably good. Anything under that, and it's going to look choppy. So if you think of it that way, 64 frames is maybe closer to 4 seconds of time. And then here we are at 128 frames and 256. Next up, there's some just kind of technical things that are not really that important, but here's sort of the final bit is it gets turned into a flipbook. So basically the predecessor gets added to this comp, in this case 16 times, and we've got a little script running on the layers and a controller that tells it how many rows and columns there are. So it just sort of it automatically like lays it out in a flipbook for us. I don't know how many times I did that manually before we had a process like that, and that was painful. But now we sort of have a nice setup for it. And from there, it goes scaled to different resolutions. So here is the big bad one, 256 frames. The largest a video card today can load is a 16K by 8K texture. Video cards will load that and play it, and that's what you're looking at in the Unreal project I showed a minute ago. This one's still loading, give it a minute. We'll show a lower resolution one. But there you go. So here's the 32 frame version of it. From there, you take it into Unreal, put on a particle, give it an amount of time, make it the right size, and there you go. So that's sort of the basics of how to make flipbook textures from filmed material. Now we're going to show you another way using simulations. Over to you, Jason.
Awesome. Thanks, DJ. Swap it over. My name is Jason Key, and I work for JangaFX, the makers of EmberGen. And what I want to show you guys tonight is just a quick overview of how EmberGen works. So this is just, I'm not going to show this whole reel, but this is some stuff we've done in Unreal. But I'm going to jump right in to the good stuff. So one thing I want to mention up front is, so this is EmberGen, and a lot of people miss this. We have nearly 100 different presets that ship with it. So you can look through here and see something that's close to what you want to do. As a matter of fact, DJ is going to show something next where he used one of these presets as a starting point for production work. So we have things, realistic things like a cannon blast. By the way, this entire demo that I'm showing tonight is all running real time on this Dell Pro Max laptop. So shout out to Dell for letting us show off their latest hardware. But we have realistic things, and then we also have magical, more fantastic type effects that you can do. Again, all running in real time. But these are some of the presets we have. Tonight, what I'm going to do is just start from scratch and show you how to make something. So let's go here. So this is what you see when you start EmberGen. This is like the default cube in Blender speak. So as soon as you launch EmberGen, you are simulating in real time. So if any changes you make are instantly reflected in both shading and forces and physics and all that. Everything is real time. It is a node-based software, so let me expand this. But don't worry, it's not It's not like a lot of other tools. There's not hundreds of nodes to understand. It's quite straightforward. So if you look, for example, these nodes I'm selecting here, these all have to do with kind of shading and exporting. But what you're seeing in the viewport here is really, it's just these 3 nodes. So I'm going to go through a little bit of this. So the simulation node is kind of the heart of things. And if you look at it, it just has 3 inputs. There's forces, emitters, and colliders. In this example, I've just got an emitter that has a sphere that's defining where the emission comes from. The emitter itself has a few properties. The main ones are fuel, temperature, and smoke and pressure. So for instance, if you look, if I turn off the fuel rate, you'll see that I'm just emitting smoke and temperature, and it's rising because of buoyancy forces. But it's really straightforward. I mean, there's just a few main controls that you need to understand for emitters. Same thing for shapes. We have a lot of just basic primitive shapes. This is a sphere, and let's say if I want to just copy and paste it, now I have 2 spheres. I can make these. We have several primitives like cones and toruses and things like that, and you can combine and subtract them and do basic modeling of shapes within EmberGen. And of course, you're going to be able to import anything you want as well, and I'll show a bunch of examples of that. But that's the emitter. And now let's look at, you see this forces input. Now if I want to create a force, I just drag off of this pin. That's another important thing to note, is that all of our nodes are context sensitive. So when you drag off of an input pin like this, it only shows you what belongs as input. So it's really handy as far as not getting too overwhelmed with all the possibilities. But for this example, I'm just going to connect a line force, and you'll see what happens when I connect this line force. By default, a line force just pushes everything in one direction. But it also has a property called twist. So if I turn up the twist strength on this line force, you'll see it starts to spin, and I'm already getting like a little Firenado effect. So all of our forces have nice gizmos where you can kind of tell what's going on, showing what direction that you're twisting in and things like that. We could also add something like a point force. Put that in here. And this point force is actually attracting. It's applying like negative pressure and attracting. So it's really easy to mix and match these things and just kind of craft your shapes in Sims. And I think, as you saw when I drag off of this, there's only 6 different types of forces, so it's really easy to get your head around it. So I'm going to turn those off for a second. And then now let's go down to colliders. And the colliders actually aren't even necessary for a lot of effects. So forces and emitters are the 2 main things. But let's take a quick look at colliders. If I drag off of this pin, there's actually only one option, the collider node. And I'm going to connect another basic shape to it. So this is just a box shape. And you can see if I move this around, it's now interacting with the simulation. So if I twist it or move it or anything I do, it just reacts in real time. I'm going to pause real quick here and just talk about animation. So you can animate any property within EmberGen. If you look at the properties panel on the right here, there's little circles next to every property. If you click those circles, it exposes it to the timeline at the bottom, and it works the way, I'm not going to go into it, but it works the way all other programs work. You can keyframe things, set keys, and adjust in and out curves and things like that. So you can do that with shapes, or you can do it with, say, ramping up the fuel rate up and down, anything you want to set keys on. But another thing you can do that's really interesting is you can do procedural animation. So if I go and, instead of clicking once on this circle, that exposes it to the timeline. If I click it twice, it exposes an input pin. So if you see, the shape has a rotation input pin now. And what I can do with that is connect it to things like oscillators. So this is an oscillator node that's essentially just using a math function to drive the motion. So it's really handy for things like this, where keyframing something like this would be really tedious and annoying. So there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do there to kind of automate those types of motions. So that's using a basic shape. Now let's talk about if you want to do something more advanced as far as bringing in other models or animations and use those as emitters and colliders and things like that. All right, let me reset this. So I imported a couple of models here. You literally can drag and drop FBX files or Alembic files or OBJ. Those are the three main ones. You can drag and drop them right onto the node graph, and it'll automatically create an import node. Here I have a cloth simulation, and it's not interacting because I haven't connected it to anything. But if I go and connect this cloth animation to the collider node and reset, you can see that it's actually interacting. Or if I connected it to the emitter instead, it's going to emit. So it's that easy. You just import it, connect it up. So that's a cloth simulation. That was an Alembic format that I imported with. Let's look at something in FBX. This is I'm going to turn off my original emitter here. And so this is an imported rigid body dynamic simulation. I'm not exactly sure where it came from, but you can play this back, and then I can use different elements within this FBX file as colliders or emitters. So for obviously, like I did with the cloth, if I connect the entire thing to the emitter, it's going to be everything on fire. Crazy. But let's say I want to just do certain things, not all of it. So if we look at this emitter node, and we call these masks. So if I click on the mask 1, you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's an entire list of everything that's contained within this FBX file. So I can see that the ball is right there at the top. So if I select that, and then that becomes my mask 1 because it's checked under the mask 1 tab. So I'm just going to connect the ball into the emission node now, and you can see, well, mask 1 into the emission node. And so now it's just the ball. So you can do all kinds of really cool things. You could connect just the blocks to a fuel emitter and cause them to explode, and all kinds of really interesting things. But the point of showing this is that you can see everything inside the FBX and choose different objects to do different things. And the last import thing I want to show is a character. So let's say you want to bring in an entire animated character. So I just grabbed this guy from Mixamo, and I'll turn back on this little fireball thing. So nothing is happening. He's not interacting with it because it's not connected. But if I connect all of the geometry into the collider, you'll see that it starts to react. Let me turn off this. So now he's interacting with it. And again, if I instead connect to the emitter, it's going to be on fire. So now let's say that the one really cool thing that we do with FBX files, if you're working with characters, is that we actually detect all of the bone information inside of the FBX file. So if we look at that same, where we looked at the masks before, if we go into this import node and look at the masks, there's a bones section here. And if I look at the bones, you can see it has all the bones that are contained in the FBX file, but it also contains the skinned weights that are associated with those bones. So let's say I want just the head and neck to be an emitter. So I'm just going to check head and neck, and that becomes my mask. Well, let's go to mask 1. And then instead of connecting all of the geometry, we'll just put mask 1 into the emitter. If I can connect it. So this, just the skinned weights associated with its head and neck. So that's a really cool thing you can do if you have something that's rigged that you want to bring in. And the last thing that you can do that's probably the most advanced is you see that this character has colors on it. So it has some green on the face and then some red and blue down at the bottom. Those were vertex colors that I painted in Blender. And we can use those vertex colors as masks as well. So if I just go and connect, say, back into the masks, I'll say, choose mask 2. And instead of choosing bones, I'm going to go down here, and you can choose different vertex colors, red, green, or blue. So I'm going to choose red, and that becomes my mask 2. And if I connect that in, you can see that those are emitting. So you could draw a symbol on his back or chest, so you can emit from things that don't have anything to do with underlying bone structure, which is kind of cool. So let's move on from importing and talk about shading and lighting. So one of the other really amazing things about EmberGen is that not only is that you're getting real-time physics simulation, you're also getting near final pixel shading and rendering. So if I go over here to the shading node, this fire is being driven by a gradient. You can also use a black body shader, which is based on temperature. But this one happens to be driven by a gradient. And I can go in here and I can select different gradients that I've made. And you can create your own, or you can actually import gradient files as well. So it's really easy to go in here and tweak the shading of the smoke and the fire. And then as far as the lighting goes, I can select this directional light, and you can see as I move it around, the shadows are changing. If I turn that off and create something like a point light, we just have, I think, 3 different types of lights. It's really, really simple. I can change this to a different color, and you can see as I move it around that everything's changing in real time. I don't know why I paused it. You don't have to, it'll do this while you're simulating as well. Another thing that you can do with lighting, if you're trying to match to an environment, a lot of times in games you don't want to bake in a lot of lighting. You want to do that on the shader side in Engine. But if you are trying to match to a specific environment, if you're doing something for film or a specific cinematic environment, you can use backplates inside of EmberGen to help you match the lighting. So let me turn that point light off and turn this ambient light back, or the directional light back on. And I'm going to go into this camera view where I've set a backplate. So you can bring in any image you want. You can drag and drop it right onto the viewport, actually, and it will automatically apply to the camera. You can also use image sequences as well. So this is kind of a more fantasy environment. I'm going to turn off my character for a second just to make it more clear. So let's say I want to try to match to this environment. I'm going to go to my directional light and go and choose the color picker. And we also have an eyedropper tool, which is really handy. So if I click the eyedropper, and I can just go sample the pink from near the moon here. And then let's say maybe make it a lot brighter. And then maybe adjust the angle so that it's a little closer to what's there. Maybe the elevation a little. You can see it's already starting to kind of sit in the environment. And I can use the eyedropper for shading on something like the fire too. So let's say I want this to be a more magical type of fire and fit more into this environment. I can go to that gradient that is coloring the fire, and I can also use an eyedropper here to create not just pick a color, but I can sample an entire gradient. So if I click this eyedropper and I drag across these blue flowers down here, you can see that it created, if you can see this gradient that it created, it's sampled as I was dragging. So now you can see that I've already, kind of got this thing grounded in the environment just by using the backplate. Yeah, so that's like a really basic overview. So now let's just talk briefly about what do you do once you've got your sim and your lighting and your shading all set up, then what? So I'm going to go over to the Render tab, and let's enlarge that a little. And so what we can do here is render out every possible pass you could want. So this can be used not just for games, for flipbooks, but also for compositing in Nuke or After Effects or Fusion or whatever. We can do full multi-part EXRs at any resolution that you want. So it's a very robust workflow. So what we can see here in this view mode is the different passes. So this is what you would consider the beauty pass that includes all the lighting and everything. But we can also separate these things out. So if I want to render out just the smoke or just the emissive and scattering of the flames as a separate pass, or if I want to render out a depth pass, I can go in and adjust the depth, and render that out. And that's a really interesting thing you can use both in compositing and in game flipbooks. You can use this information to kind of make it not clip so hard into geometry in the game. We also have motion vectors. This can help you use less frames in your flipbook, so it can help you interpolate between frames and use maybe less than 64 if you need to. We have 6-point lighting, and that's another thing that you can do both in compositing and in your game engine shaders to do fake lighting and post lighting. We have things like normal maps. We have just a couple of dozen render passes, so anything you need you can export and then combine, manipulate in compositing or in your shader and engine. Just really quickly, let me open up a more game-specific one. And so this is like a little bit like what DJ was talking about. If I turn off the, turn off the skybox here. So this is kind of like a stylized game explosion. So when you go to render, so EmberGen was originally designed for games, so the default export is actually flipbooks. So here you can define your overall texture resolution and then your sub-resolutions and the number of rows and columns for your flipbook. And if I just hit export on this, so this is rendering, simulating, and exporting. That's how fast EmberGen is as far as like, you're not waiting to cache and render. So that just created my flipbook. I think I exported it to the desktop, yeah. So if we just look here, it just created this PNG file. So this is what's going to go, and you just drop this into any game engine you want. Let's go back here. But we also have a very convenient flipbook previewer here within EmberGen. So you can go and inspect your frames, make sure you're not hitting the edges. You can also play it back, like DJ was saying. You can put in 15 frames per second here, so you can kind of get an idea of like, oh, what is this going to look like at 15 FPS in game? So you can do lots of nice previews and inspections here that are specific for games. That is about it for an overview of the existing EmberGen. I do want to, before I hand it back to DJ, I want to show a little sneak peek of something that we're working on. It's R&D build of our next solver for EmberGen. So it's going to give a little sneak peek of that and kind of explain what it is. one. So what we have here, this is the next evolution of EmberGen that's going to be coming out sometime next year. And this is what's using what's called our sparse solver. So if we look at what we've got here, you can, I don't know if you're sure if you can tell on this screen, but there's a lot more detail in this. So we're at over 100 million voxels already, where I've got it paused. You can also see we've got HDR lighting, which we don't have in the current EmberGen. But the big deal about this is the sparse solver. So this is going to allow it to be even faster than it is currently. So to explain a little bit about what a sparse solver is, I can turn on the bounding box of this, and I'm going to turn off my skybox really quick. So you can see this entire bounding box. So that's what you have currently. What a non-sparse solver does is it has to calculate everything within that box. But what a sparse solver does is this. So this is only calculating what it needs to within that volume. So for examples like this, if you look at all the empty space, a lot of use cases, you're going to be able to get like 2x to 10x more efficient, faster simulations using a sparse solver compared to what we have today. So it's just going to be insane. Like, it's already insane how fast it is. If you do another 10x on that, and with the next generation of hardware, we're going to be able to simulate more voxels than there are pixels on the screen. So that's just a little sneak peek into what's coming next year. But today, you can go download EmberGen from JangaFX.com. There's a free trial. You don't even have to sign up or do anything. You can just go grab it, download it, play with it. I promise you will have fun. So thank you. I'm going to hand it back to DJ.
Amazing. That was really cool. I'm excited about HDR lighting in it too. That's rad. That's a big deal.
Lots of new stuff.
That helps the realism quite a bit. Amazing. Thank you, Jason. All right, next up we're going to talk about, I'm going to show off some stuff from a game I worked on called Scavengers. And there's some weather effects in this game that I personally did. The most time I have ever spent on a single suite of effects was in this game. They gave me about 9 months to do this one sort of suite of effects in it, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So let's take a look. Cue the video. So I'm going to play a video. This is over the course of about 9 months. Every day I would make some changes and send the client videos of just stuff in progress. So some of what you're going to see in here is a little rough. Some is just in progress stuff, and you'll kind of see parts of it advancing. There are a few things. And then we're going to take one of those parts of it, one of the effects, and I'm going to go into EmberGen and Unreal Engine and kind of show you how it is made under the hood. So there's the game Scavengers is a battle royale game. Think of like we're kind of going for a Mad Max vibe where there's sandstorms, except you're in the snow. It's like blizzard, like winter horror survival hell. So there's snow tornadoes, there's a collapsing wall of blizzard, like avalanche coming in on you, and just a bunch of crazy stuff. So here is a behind the scenes look at some of the cooler, just little snippets of update videos that I had sent to the client. Shout out to the guys at Midwinter Entertainment. Vector regen is how these particles are wisping up as the tornadoes were formed. We'd have that going to sort of anticipate it. This is what we're going to show off in a little while. The cloud wall with little rim light shader on the edge. There are some early versions of the snow tornadoes. To get these to pair with like the sky was really a trick. To get this kind of like, I wanted to get that like sort of silver lining rimlet, so when you're looking in the sun or moon direction, you get this nice like highlighting on the edge of all the volumetrics. And really like lovely sort of motion as they go in time. And we want it to feel very ominous, like this is gonna come in and just kill you. Heat is a mechanic in this game, so you're always fighting, you know, dying of cold. This is a little fast, so take a look at the debug of it. It is 32 or so effects placed like around this thing in a variable that is a radius, so as the Battle Royale map is collapsing down on you, they come closer, they shrink themselves, there's fewer particles to keep this efficient as it gets closer in. There's the anticipation. Those are 40,000 GPU particles with a vector field, creating that cool motion. Here I started to do the base of the tornadoes, so to imply when if you enter one of those, it's gonna mess you up and make you really cold and die fast. Here was, we added lightning, getting the little rim of the tornadoes to have a fuzzy edge that responded to the lightning was a trick that was really fun to work on. We looked at a ton of tornado reference. We wanted to get these like little debris things that are flying around it in there. Here are some of the vector. I think this is loading a vector field from VectoRayGen, which was the program that preceded EmberGen. Here is a bunch of that debris now flying around it, and it's kind of low contrast at night, but when the lightning hits it, like it all kind of like blows it out and looks really cool. Those are some of the textures I painted of the debris elements, so you get a nice variety. I had one that was kind of like very generic, kind of basically little dots, and then I wanted some that are like kind of uniquely profiled shapes that are a very rare element to kind of mix it up and give it a little like interest elements in there. There it is, just flying around a massive area like that you kind of get engulfed in. Bursts of them would like shoot out and then get picked up by the wind and go spinning around it. I used 3D noises scrolling through to make the tornadoes warble over time. When you get caught up in one of the tornadoes, those are like sparks and lightning. This never made it to the game. We were doing like category 5, like city-sized tornadoes. That was a lot of fun to work on. And let's take a look at how one part of that was made, the wall on the perimeter. So we used EmberGen for this. Basically, we took, so the files I'm going to show you now are going to be an approximation of it because we were sort of hired guns to do this effect with a game studio. We have a data deletion policy. I don't have any of the files that went into making this. So I've kind of replicated it for you guys for this talk. So it won't look exactly like this, but you'll get the idea. Most of the main concepts are in there. But essentially, and I'm going to show in EmberGen and in Unreal Engine, more or less this. So I took, one of the defaults from EmberGen, the rising smoke default, and changed not many things. By default, it just kind of goes up to the side. I eliminated that movement. I added a little buoyancy and a downward force. And let's take a look at it inside of EmberGen. So right now it is now looping, and I have a camera that is just looking down on it from above. So it is a sphere that is emitting smoke. There's an initial velocity that's causing it to rise up towards the camera, and then gravity pulls it back down away. So you're just getting kind of this constant like roil, and then we tell the simulation to just loop a little 64 frame bit of that, and it just sort of loops into itself. So there it is. That's functionally how, like all of that wall stuff in that video was this one texture. Well, two textures. So once it was, oopsie, I'm losing. Let me go back to the default view. Once I had that authored, I basically just did a save as, turned off all the lighting, and put one light behind it, just sort of opposite the camera. Let's take a look at that. And so here it is. When you first load the project and start the simulation from the beginning, there's kind of this initialization step where it kind of goes too far and does stuff and goes a little crazy, and then it sort of settles into time where it's just sort of like emitting it out. So once this settles in, basically it's the same exact file except from above with only one light behind. So you get essentially just like a rim around it. And yeah, there it is settling in. So you can see here there's the sort of time frame at about 600 where all the initial stuff will have gone away. And then you basically get this. So it's the same sim, but just a silver lining backlit version of it, and then the original one with normals and some ambient occlusion built into it. So there you go. Now that will just kind of loop forever. I exported the textures, and by the way, I made this in about 20 minutes yesterday. Just literally taking the default smoke and just tuning very few things. EmberGen is super fun to use, and it's so fast, and you can make really cool results. So essentially, yeah, this is a look at those two textures combined in Unreal Engine. There's the smoke, and then here you see just the rim light. These are screenshots from the game, not the ones that I've recreated. And there they are together in Unreal, where you can see the smoke with silver lining on it. And then you've got the whole cloud wall. So there's a few other things I did. There's like kind of a gradient in here to make it feel like there's a big overhang, and it's just like a darkening gradient rim around the whole thing. So let's now take a look at it in Unreal Engine. I should probably close the 3 other Unreal projects that I've got going right now to get some frame rate back. Did it? Oh, I think I need to open this map. Okay. When it crashed earlier, I think I lost my changes. Let me see. Let's just sort of replicate it. All right, we're going to do it live, you guys. Let's replicate what I did earlier. Let me actually do close these other 2 Unreals and EmberGen. We'll get a little performance back. Yeah, there we go. Okay. It has Unreal crashes sometimes, you guys. Let's launch it again. This will take not long at all to open. So a lot of the tricks from here were just really in the materials at this point. The two textures I've got are, I can show you guys right here. Come on. So here's the flipbook of the primary smoke. Here is, I did a couple versions of the rimlet one. I wasn't as happy as like the original when I did back in the day, but those are a couple looks at the sort of rim lighting, and then we've got normals. But this is the heavy lifting. That's basically the texture right there. All right, let's see if Unreal has now loaded. Good. Okay, cool. Ah, excellent. My changes are back. Good. Give it a moment to compile shaders. All right, it's got an error. Let's fix that right now. Some of the textures didn't save, so let's re-import them. We're doing it live, you guys. All right. So here is the texture. Let's save it. Okay, no more errors. And there we are. So there it is running in real time. Yay! So let's break down a little bit of what's going on inside of the shaders. That looks pretty cool, right? Yeah. So you'll notice that there, if I back way out, there's kind of a, I'm doing a little fake rim stuff there, so you can see the light is kind of backlight scattering into that. Feels big and ominous. I'll hit play. You can kind of run around the character there. It is sort of loading in. So let's take a look at inside the shader. What is going on to pull off some of that magic? And fingers crossed it doesn't crash again. So here's the node network. It's pretty simple. There's not a ton going on, but I'm gonna sort of introduce a little bit at a time to sort of show you the buildup of how this is made. So let's disconnect. Oh, actually, the normals aren't even connected right now. Let's disconnect the emissive. Let's split screen so you guys can see how this is progressing. Let's get a nice angle to stare at. Yeah, that was cool back there. Let me show you too. The normal was disconnected. Let's see it with and without normals. Compilation error. All right, let's see that. I think the normal didn't save either, so let's reload. Let's get that loaded again. And the normal is down here. Yeah. Blizzard rolling in. Okay, so here it is with the normals. Doesn't look much different. They're pretty subtle in here. So let's just kind of break it down piece by piece. We'll disconnect the emissive, the normal, all the extra stuff, and we're just gonna see the particles. So let's connect this guy, get rid of some of the preview. All right, so now all we're gonna see is the diffuse, and the alpha channel. Not bad already, just straight out the gate. So it feels a little weird, right? That as I look around, it's kind of darkening over there and then lightening over there. That is kind of a weird artifact of game engines and how the lighting formula works, and that they're sort of turning to face me. There's a thing you can do to make them, instead of camera perpendicular, you make them camera facing. So let's make that change real quick. Here is the Niagara system that is driving these guys. Yay! Oh, Unreal Engine. While it's loading, thank you again to Dell and NVIDIA for sponsoring this talk. You guys are amazing. Yeah, Jason and I just flew out we're both from Georgia. Jason's in Atlanta, I'm in Savannah. We'll skip the Niagara system change. We'll just go back to re-importing the textures, and we'll continue with the material. Just a moment. All right, let's take the normal map. Yeah, and by the way, you guys, like, this is standard game dev stuff. Nothing ever works. Half the time, the job is just figuring out, like, in what ways everything is failing, and yeah. So, normal. All right, let's see if we can get the level up again. It's compiling. Excellent. All right. So, let's move on. We've got the normal disconnected, emissive disconnected. So the first thing I want to add is like kind of a gradient here. I won't get into all of the explanations, but just know that normally you have a texture and you have a particle or any model, and UV coordinates are how the thing maps, right? In a particle, it's just 0 to 1 and fills the whole thing. So a clever trick that I use all the time in game engines is absolute world position. So it's taking this gradient, which you can see here is just barely a little white to black, and it is just projecting it through the whole world. And then I do a divide operation. You'd think you'd multiply to make it bigger. Really, you divide to make the UVs smaller. So this is scaling it up to be 100,000 units big. And then I've got a 60,000 unit offset. So let's combine back in this gradient to make it feel like it's kind of overhanging and ominous. Yeah, that feels good. And then we can, we can tune it. Let's see, let's move it a little higher. Hey, do you want it to go up further into it? Do you want it to be a little lower? I kind of open it back. I already tuned it nicely. It's good. There we are. And we can change the scale of it if we want it to be a tighter gradient, or that so a smaller number makes it larger or something. 10, let's go up to 20. Cool, so you can make it better, but we'll put it back to where we had it. That looks good. Now you got this kind of overhang feel. Let's put the normal map back in there. Can't really tell the difference there much. And it looks a little flat here, right? The lighting is behind it. You're not really getting much detail. So I want to introduce a little bit of the texture into the emissive. So it just kind of like gives a little bit of that textural kick. So here off the emissive chain, I'm basically taking that upper texture and just plugging it in. So let's do that again here. Okay, well now it's too bright. So I want to trim. I want to be able to, like, let's send it through a multiply. and tell it a lot of that, but back off a little bit. Okay, cool. So now it feels nice, and you're looking in the sun direction. It's not just kind of graying out anymore. It's dimming, but you still get some nice texture in there. And then I added, well, now we want it to be a little brighter here on the top of the rim of this thing. So this is a bunch of nodes. I'll just kind of briefly, so I ended up not using the rim light in this case. I used just kind of a yellow light. A sphere mask is a trick that just says, give me a black and white kind of like ball somewhere. So I'm basically telling it to, well, let's just step through it. So if I just apply this brighter color to the whole thing now, and plug that all in, the whole thing's just going to get bright. So I want it to only be in the sun direction. That was the wrong one. Let's put it in the right one. Okay, yep, too bright. So let's contain it to just be on the side that has the sun. So that's what this sphere mask is doing. Let's just take world position, blah, 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 math. I give it a location in space, and then we will use that. And let's plug that in. If I can find it over here somewhere. All right, good. So now you don't see it except for where the sun is, but I only want it on the top. So that gradient thing that I did, where I made it look kind of darker in the bottom, I essentially just literally copied that over to here and renamed the variables. And so we're going to limit it. So the gradient is essentially just a tight little thing up here. So you're only going to get this up in the rim. So here's kind of that whole bit of network together now. So you just get a little like warm brightness where the sun is backlighting it. There you go. Thank you, EmberGen, for making a really cool tool that you can do that with, yeah. It is wild to me that is just literally a single texture. I thought it turned out really great. I was really proud of this work. And with that, I think we're gonna open it up to questions. Who's got one? Edwin, before we go, we've got a throw mic here so that the Twitch and YouTube stream can hear you. You just talk into the square.
The top, right?
There you go.
I can look at that. Okay. I notice you're not using any flow maps in this. Is this because they're used really big on the screen and they just want to keep them as cheap as possible? Or?
Good question. So Edwin asked about flow maps. Vector fields is another way to say it. I've done a bunch of vector field stuff. There's sort of two flavors of authoring them. They're always kind of a pain, and they don't work well. Mixed results. And EmberGen has a export vector field node, motion vector node. Yeah. So the thing that would give, it's kind of a memory real-time perf cost, so and resolution trade-off, right? So you're spending extra cycles to calculate on these very large transparent things. You're adding extra GPU cost, and what you're getting out of it is more resolution, right? Because instead of 64 frames, we could have just exported 16 or 32, twice the resolution. And then the motion vector, instead of just kind of like cross-fading between them, which looks a little janky when you're slowing it down. With motion vectors, it lets you, it's kind of like smearing the thing also to like be where the next bit of it is going to be in time, So you don't need as many frames. So instead of a 256 per frame, now you can have a 512, and if you get closer. So, you know, these things are so massive, right? When you get up there, we have a different close-up visual. There's like a holographic grid wall. I didn't really show that, but yeah, when you like walk through one of these things, there's a different visual that you get anyway. So you don't really see them such that they're up close and breaking up. They're kind of, there's not a lot of high-frequency detail in them anyway, and so we just kind of, this case didn't seem necessary to get higher resolution, so we just opted for more time. Yeah, but good question.
Hello. Thank you guys for the talk. It was very, very cool. I'm a Houdini FX artist, so this has been very like eye-opening for the game world for me. But I'm curious, I think you kind of answered a little bit with the motion vectors, but when you were showing the fire in that example project, it looked very three-dimensional as opposed to just a card facing the screen. Like, is that what you utilize the motion vectors for, is so a character or player can walk through the fire and it look three-dimensional, or is there another process that you guys use to make it like really feel three-dimensional from all angles?
Do you want to fill that one?
I think you was talking about your actual effects stuff.
Okay, yeah, the fires. Yeah, good question. So, and I'll sort of like summarize, recap. If I'm off, guide me back in. So, Jason showed some full volumetric fire stuff. The one in our fire pack, which I closed because, yeah, I'll reopen it in case we get to that. So, the direct answer to your question is no. Vector fields are not used for 3D volumetric stuff. So EmberGen, when you're authoring something, is full-on 3D volumetrics. You can literally like go through the things. In the fire pack that I showed, everything that I showed is not volumetric. It's baked down to flipbooks. So motion vectors are not for volumetric stuff. They're for flipbooks. They're a way to make it so that they interpolate better between frames. Instead of just crossfading, you get like a more realistic. Your televisions do this too. Like if you ever, they have motion vector frame blending on them by default. A lot of people like to turn off the weird like soap opera look, like ultra high speed thing. That's what it is. It's essentially doing motion vectors live on the fly. So motion vectors are just for 2D image interpolation to get it to blend better. So volumetrics in real time in video games, we are just at the very beginning of now. Jason has some really cool stuff that he showed in demos that is like live and volumetric in Unreal Engine. Some of that stuff is just too heavy to ship in a game that's got load, right, that needs to run at 60 frames per second. But we're starting to see that. Fortnite has some volumetrics in it right now. You can import VDBs. You can bake volumetrics into textures to use instead of time as volumetric slices. There's Raymart shaders that can light and shade that in Unreal Engine in real time. So we're in the very beginnings of having volumetrics in the game. But just as generations continue and we get more memory and horsepower, that's going to be the way. Flipbooks are going to go away, and like, yay, please do. I want like he's got a Tornado demo that's like, it looks cooler than mine. Damn, and I was like super proud of mine, but I'm like, yeah, the volumetric one's better. So I'm excited for that. It's you couldn't put that in a game right now and ship it, but real soon here. Yeah, and I'm super excited for that. Good question.
So when you're making the flipbook textures, how did you make it seamless, like the cycle?
Seamless, like the looping of it in time? Yeah, good question. So EmberGen makes it really easy. You just check the loop Checkbox.
My mic on? Test, test. Yeah, I've neglected to mention that, but that's a really cool feature that's built into EmberGen is a looping feature, and it's specifically, was designed for game effects. So you can literally set, beginning and end frame, and as long as they look kind of similar at the begin and end, it will do a perfect loop for you. So there are tricks you can do in After Effects and cross blending and stuff, but we actually have some looping technology built into the volumetrics, so you can do a true 3D loop. So that helps.
I'll speak to that in another way. So there's a couple ways to do it, right? EmberGen, check the loop button. There's your easiest, best way. Yes, it exports and renders already looping. It's great. That's how I did this demo today. That's how I did it when in the real game. But some of those effects packs that we're making, in the fire you saw a roiling smoke that was looped. But like, what about film stuff? Like, there's no EmberGen loop button when you're filming stuff. So here's the trick that I have found. I'll present it conceptually, if not literally showing you guys. But say you've got an explosion, a filmed explosion, and you want it just kind of like fireball going forever, kind of like that roiling cloud is, right? So, I would start with running it through that After Effects thing. You center it. I'd add another step to track it. So instead of like going out and going up, it kind of like, you track it so it's like just staying put, and you're actually scaling it down. So it starts kind of big. So it looks like it's also not even growing. It's just kind of like, it's kind of in place there. And then you find the like bit of time that you're like, okay, I want this to loop. And it is ideal if you have whatever time you want to loop, you have that much more time after and before it. And here's the trick that I do. So I'll the area I'm interested in, take a bit more, and then crop a composition to be just that time, put it in another composition, and here's the trick. Rather than trying to like crossfade it back into itself, that's a little painful, chop it right in the middle of time, and then do that, so that the edges of time in your composition already go back into itself perfectly. So now you've got these two extra tails that you just need to like fade between. So that's kind of the manual After Effects way to do it. I've done that a ton, and that's kind of, I think, the cleanest, nicest way to do it. Yeah, loop button. That's that's the better way. That's nicer. Good question.
Hi, how you doing? I was curious. When you're doing a project like this, massive smoke sims or cloud sims, how do you balance out visual quality and particle count and optimization?
Yeah, you want to take this one, or?
Could you repeat the question?
When it comes to massive like cloud sims and smoke sims like this, how do you balance out your particle counts and visual quality and optimization in the game engine?
In the game engine?
Yeah.
I don't know, probably better for you. I mean, once it leaves EmberGen, at least for flipbooks, it's kind of baked. So the optimization would be in engine.
So, yes, optimization is something I have obsessed my career about, and I'll sort of give a couple examples in here. Where's the video for that? Yeah. I'm just going to kind of play this in the background and mute it while I sort of talk over it. Okay, so math. In a video game, you have to render in real time, and when a project ships, early on they decided if it's a 60 FPS game or a 30 FPS game. Or if you're doing VR, you might be 90 or 120. So that's your baseline. So here's the math. In a 60 FPS game, which all of the Call of Duties are, if you divide, so you have 1,000 milliseconds in a second. If you have to render 60 of those, 60 FPS, you have 16 point, you just do 1,000 divided by 60, 16.6. That's how many milliseconds you have to draw this frame right now. There's your rendering time. There's no server farm. There's no, I've been to Wada's amazing render farm. Holy Lord. We have one Xbox and we have 16.6 milliseconds to do all of it on the CPU and on the GPU. So different load goes to different subsystems. Some of it goes on each. The effects department, all of these particles, well, the whole game has to draw. We get 3 in a generous game. 1.5 is sometimes your budget. 1.5 thousandths of a second. And remember, before I mentioned you measure stuff, right? Like, so there's if you're doing console development, there's a software for PlayStation called Pix. It's called, I'm sorry, for PlayStation, PS4 Razor at the time. I don't know what a PS5 Razor now. Pix is Performance Investigator for Xbox. So you could do, if basically, usually the way it works is you will get a bug. The effects, by the way, everything is blamed on effects. Know that. The game doesn't run, tell effects to turn it down. Well, we did our job. And so you want to get really good at performance measuring because you want to tell them, no, we did our jobs right. The effects performance is fine. Go talk to environment or animation or whatever. You want to be protective about your work because it's like there is always an impulse to tell effects to turn it down, and you need to have good ammo. You need to, one, have done your job right and not be blowing perf, and 2, you need to have measured evidence that you did not F up, and so talk to somebody else. So you have, we'll say 2 milliseconds to do it, CPU and GPU. So there are 2 things that load those things up. On the GPU side, you're fighting fill rate. So here, there is, in that scene, there is next to no fill rate. That entire tornado is 3 meshes, 1, 2, 3. There's one primary texture. There's a very wispy one with next to nothing in it that is scrolling at a faster rate, so there's a little parallax. And then the main one has some holes painted out of it, so you can see an inner thing scrolling faster. So that's just 3 layers covering a majority of the screen. That is not a fill rate problem. The little tiny particles are just that. They're little and tiny. They're not introducing fill. I can have 50,000 of those. They're not filling up the screen once. So that is not a fill problem at all. Those big particles on the distance, yeah, they're layering up. So you got to be very careful. You can maybe have 7 layers of a particle filling your screen. It's kind of like over time, depending on the engine or whatever, 7 layers, 30 layers is the range. If you do more than that, you have, okay, we'll fix it. So containing your fill rate is like, that is the #1 easiest and most common way for the effects team to blow the budget, and you've done it wrong, turn it down. On the CPU side, so these particles, these tons and, tens of thousands, there's probably 40,000 little debris dots there. They're GPU particles. So although the GPU is often the loaded, your GPU bound, they would say, because the GPU is doing more than the CPU. GPU particles are very fast and efficient, and you cannot put 40,000 CPU particles in a scene. You can put 40,000 GPU particles in the scene because they're very efficient. Collisions are going to be the thing that will often overload your CPU. So, that was a lot of very specific detail. I will sort of narrow the concept down to, like, as you start to do effects in production studios, you're gonna get it wrong. You're gonna blow you're gonna blow CPU and GPU, and you're gonna measure 14 milliseconds. Sorry, guys. And you just have to become good at understanding where you're loading up fill and not, and author things so that you're not, and you have to get good at measuring it so you can, that you're like, yep, I'm too many numbers, turn it down. and for fill rate, it's a pretty linear fix. It's just turn the particle count down. If there's a bunch of layering things that are big, use fewer. And like, you can kind of like do this inverse of particle count and opacity. If you do half the particles that are twice as opaque, it's almost a wash. So I hope that answers your question.
Hello, I'm a student focusing on real-time VFX. This presentation was very exciting. Do you have any advice for someone new entering the industry?
Yeah. So for what role? For Games FX or something else? Games FX. All right. Yes. Do that. It's super fun. Yeah. Game effects artists are kind of unicorns. There's not many of us. It is such a niche specialized thing that there's not a ton. It is one of the higher paying games jobs, which is cool. It is, you know, the job is thing you've never done before, go do that. Like, yep, okay. You're constantly learning. You know, EmberGen, we've got LiquidGen now coming out. IlluGen is like the new like overall framework. You're constantly learning new tools all the time. Like, there's so many different like sub-disciplines in effects: destructibles, environment effects, systems effects, spells, stylized, realistic military stuff. Like, you can go your whole career and not get bored at all. There's like so much different stuff you're doing. So yes, do be a games effects artist. That's my first advice. Trying to get into it, I will be blunt that this is a challenging time right now. The games industry, film too, are both in a lull. So hiring has slowed at this moment. Don't be discouraged. It may take some time to get placed. You know, the best thing you can do is just keep improving your work and your reel, and you know, stand out, right? And if you know, there is a crossover point. The more time that goes, if you are spending that time making your reel better, looking at the best work out there, and parroting it, mimicking it, and you will eventually, your reel will surpass the point at which you're not getting the job. You just keep making it better. Don't give up. It's too awesome and fun of a thing to do to give up. So it will be a challenging time for a while. I hope things get better soon. No one knows that, but stick to it. It's awesome. It's very rewarding, and you get to be in all the trailers for the games, which is cool.
Hey, Jason. Yeah, I have a question for you. On a spectrum of being the absolute fastest solver to being the most accurate, where does Janga place itself?
The most accurate versus the fastest?
Yeah, the most physically accurate versus the fastest.
It's quite accurate. It's not accurate to the point where, you know, it's funny, we have a lot of people coming from different industries outside of games and film that want to know what they could use LiquidGen or EmberGen for, and sometimes it's, you know, fire department research, and we're like, no, do not do that. it's not that accurate. So yeah, there's a lot of shortcuts being taken just because it's designed for games and film, visual effects only. But as far as the accuracy, it's quite accurate. We rewrote the pressure solver like a year ago, and so you can literally put things in a container and open a hole, and it will spew out of it, and it will follow through complex paths, and it's quite accurate. So I don't know how to explain the difference between the speed and the accuracy. We also have a lot of options to tune the accuracy. I didn't show it here, but there is, in the simulation node, there is a section for, I think it's called projection and advection properties. But you can go in there and tune the accuracy. And you can get a little bit more performance if you go to lower accuracy, but in general, it's quite accurate.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? There's accuracy, and there's also the most fun. Which of the programs is most fun? And EmberGen is hands down, like, it's super fun to use.
It is a lot of fun. When you don't have to wait when you're trying to figure out a new program and you want to know what all these things over here do, when you can just slide them and see what they do, it changes kind of the whole experience. It's one of the things I love the most about it is just instant feedback.
Super gratifying to use.
Quick question. I know you've done some really cool things and been a part of some really cool projects. I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing one of the cooler projects and also one of the things that have surprised you in terms of like things you've been able to either do or go or those types of things.
Yeah, is this for me or for Jason?
Both.
Both, all right. Yeah, I count my blessings. I've had a fortunate career. I just worked on a Wu-Tang Clan game. That was pretty rad. Yeah, running effects for Call of Duty was like, the honor of my life. Halo, I was a massive Halo fanboy. I did Halo 3. This is some of my most proud work. I think that I put so much love into this, and I hope it shows. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've worked in both games and film. Probably my favorite games experience was working with DJ on Call of Duty. That was the biggest project I've ever worked on, and I learned a lot from that. On the film side, I guess one of my highlights was working at a little studio called The Orphanage, which was a spinoff of ILM way back. And I got to work on a Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino movie that's called Grindhouse. And it was a lot of blood and gore stuff, but it was
Rad.
It was really fun. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps everything. I want to just have another huge round of applause for these guys and sharing their awesome experience and knowledge with us. So thank you, Jason and David, for coming out here and sharing your work and inspiring and giving us an inside look into like really cool stuff. I appreciate it. We all do. So with that being said, I just wanted to give a couple of announcements for Gnomon and Gnomon events in the community and what we're doing from here. So if you're new to this place, we do these all the time, and we have a couple new ones that are coming up really soon. So we will be hosting production designer Dylan Cole on Saturday, November 15th. This event is a pretty big one. It's going to have artist presentations, but also a book release celebration. There's going to be a gallery of his work, of his expansive portfolio over his 30-plus year career, including work from Avatar, Fire, and Ash. We're also welcoming ILM visual effects artist and Gnomon alumni Marcella Brown back to Gnomon on Thursday, November 20th for a behind-the-scenes look at the VFX for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. If you need more information and want to RSVP for those events, please check out gnomon.edu. All of our events are posted there. Again, if you're interested in learning more about Gnomon, we offer a lot of ways to connect: open houses, virtual info sessions, Saturday campus tours. As a reminder, our next open house is this weekend, Saturday, November 8th. Send us a message on Instagram at Gnomon School, and we'll get you signed up. Thank you guys. Have a great night, and thanks again for you guys coming out.
Yay.